What implications does the popularity of baseball have on related businesses? Let's unravel everything about the Korean series in terms of economy. The second Buy Korea fever is hitting the South Korean stock market. We will talk about the reason South Korean market is an attractive investment place and the measures that can prolong this buying fever. A material 100 times faster than silicon and 200 times stronger than steel. We introduce graphene that will play a pivotal role in the next generation technologies. Non-contact thermometer that can take body temperature using infrared light technology without touching the body. We visit Hubidic, which emerged as a new strong player in the healthcare market. Series of news reports on the opening of amusement facilities in North Korea. What is the intention of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who is focusing on building amusement facilities unlike his father Kim Jong-il?
Hello, I'm Andrew Salmon and welcome to Bizline. As you can see, there are grey skies above, autumn is waning and temperatures are dropping. And yet the heat in the Korean stock market is rising. There's a buy Korea fever underway among foreign investors. What's behind this trend? Is it sustainable? We'll find out. Moreover, we'll be meeting a company which is marketing some very special thermometers. They require no skin contact to take your temperature. So do stay with us. But before we go to those and other features, let's first take a look at all the breaking business and economic news that's been hitting headlines across South Korea this week.
Small and mid-sized Korean exporters are not upbeat despite a recovery in export markets, as a strong won is eroding the price competitiveness of their products against foreign rivals. A survey by the Korea Federation of Small and Medium Business shows Korean companies expect their profits to be wiped out if this year's average won-dollar exchange rate reaches 1,060 won. Korea's top automaker, Hyundai Motor, posted its first quarterly profit rise in a year. Hyundai Motor and its affiliate Kia Motors said that their net profit rose by about 4% to roughly $2.3 billion when compared to the previous quarter. The world's fifth largest automaker, Hyundai, has been losing steam domestically as the result of a faltering economy and a drawn-out labor dispute with union workers. The Korean government aims at creating 180,000 new jobs by the year 2017 through future tech investments. The plan announced by the Science and ICT Ministry includes a 5-year blueprint that will focus on 10 key future technologies. Investments will total some $8 billion into R&D and falls in line with the Park Geun-hye administration's push for a creative economy. Finance Minister Hyun Oh-suk said the Korean economy has entered a phase of recovery and could post growth of 2.9% this year. Hyun said the nation's GDP grew 1.1% in the third quarter from the previous quarter, indicating the country is on the road to recovery.
Baseball is big in Korea. The Korea series, which determines the champion every year, gains viewers of over 100 million people. So it's big stuff, and yet the question remains, how important an impact or an influence does baseball have on the overall Korean economy? Let's take a look.
The heat is on. Crowds cheering. Players on the mat, bats swinging. Korea's 2013 Professional Baseball Championship matches between the Tusan Bears and Samsung Lions put baseball fans in a frenzy. But this isn't about the crowd going to the ballpark, getting a bite out of a hot dog and drinking beer while players score. Since the professional baseball games put the audience in a cheering mood, its own culture began, and along with the popularity, businesses began to develop. There is a whole new economy built on Korean professional baseball. In reflection to the nation's love for baseball, President Park Geun-hye threw the first pitch at the third game.
사람들이랑 즐기는 분위기가 좋아서 오고요. 일단 한국 시리즈라서 마지막 끝나는 경기인 것 같아서 한 번씩 계속 오게 되는 것 같습니다.
Oh man, I love it. It's so much fun. I'm a San Francisco Giants fan, and it's great to go to the games in the U.S., but it's nothing like the atmosphere here in Korea.
The professional baseball series began in Korea in 1982, and there were 6 professional teams attracting 1.4 million people to the stadiums around the nation. As of 2012, there were 8 teams luring more than 7 million to the stadium. This year, the number is expected to grow even more, with an additional team of 9 in total.
아무래도 이제 베이징 올림픽 금메달, WBC 좋은 성적 이런 것과 더불어서 야구가 이제 좀 판이 바뀐 거죠. 특히 최근에는 여성 팬이 한 40% 넘고 가족 단위로 많이 오고 그렇기 때문에 야구가 많은 팬들의 또 많은 시민들의 생활의 일부가 되는 그런 과정으로 간다는 것은 32년이 지났지만 엄청난 변화로 생각합니다.
And with the increase of audience going to the game, their spending has increased.
야구장 오면은 맥주, 뭐 치킨, 그다음에 뭐 기타 뭐 햄버거나 이런 거 해가지고 총 한 4만 원에서 5만 원 정도 쓰는 것 같아요.
티켓 사고 밥 먹고 뭐 하면은 5만 원 정도 쓰는 것 같아요.
The latest research shows that an individual audience member spent around $40 per game on ticket, food, and souvenirs, among others, as of 2010. And the total amount tallied was about $250 million, based on near 6 million people going to the games. Even before the game starts, people need to buy tickets to see the game. Tickets cost from about $6 to $60. And at this Chamshir Baseball Stadium, capable of accommodating 27,000 people per game, that tallies to around $500,000 of ticket sales per game during regular season.
저는 그 전날에 미리 로그인을 해놔서 새벽 내내 기다렸거든요. 근데 너무 어렵게 표 구했는데 그래도 여기까지 오게 돼서 너무 기뻐요.
And once in the stadium and before that first pitch, there is some time to go shopping to collect memorabilia to remember that you were there to witness the historic match.
최근 한 4년간 급작스럽게 지금 여성 팬들이 많이 늘어남에 따라서요 용품들도 많이 거기에 맞춰서 지금 올라가고 있는 추세예요. 매출도 한 30% 정도는 오른다고 보시면 될 것 같습니다.
Baseball fans have become avid collectors, spending even more money than before.
원래 처음에는 가볍게 모자부터 시작해서 유니폼을 사고 마지막에 자켓을 사고 더 나아가면 다시 한번 유니폼을 사는 순환 구조가 계속 이루어지고 있습니다.
But the spending spree doesn't end there. There wouldn't be joy in watching the game if there was no food and drink. In the US, it's hot dogs and beer. And in Korea, there is a unique food culture in the baseball stadium.
Yeah, the food's definitely different. It's a lot more variation than back home. Food's just better quality.
Because the Doosan Bears made it to the final, and with an increase in the number of games played at Chamshir, shops here are raking in more money.
아무래도 뭐 이번 연도는 LG랑 두산이 준플레이오프, 뭐 한국 시리즈까지 계속 쭉 올라오고 서울팀이 잘하다 보니까 뭐 게임 수도 많아지니 뭐 매출은 아무래도 뭐 다른 때에 비해서 많이 올라간 것 같습니다.
예, 아무래도 이제 경기 수도 늘어나고 게임을 여러 번 진행하다 보니까 매출 손님도 엄청 늘어나고 많아진 것 같습니다. 예.
Additional games in baseball means a whole lot more to people interested in the business aspects. A championship game at Chamshir brings in about $900,000, and if the championship games are played out to the full 7 sets, then the total ticket sales income could exceed $7 million. There you have it. Baseball games aren't just about the field. There is a lot more going on than baseball gloves, balls, and bats.
야구 산업이라는 단어가 이제 생겼거든요. 그러기 위해서는 이제는 가장 중요한 것은 하드웨어, 즉 필드에서 기량을 발휘하는 선수는 좀 잠깐 놔두고요. 일단 필드를 찾는 손님들에게 어떤 편안함을 주느냐. 그걸 위해서는 정중한 인재 양성 플러스 지방정부의 투자, 질 좋은 하드웨어의 건설, 이것이 가장 함축적인 내용이 아닐까 개인적으로 생각합니다.
The Korean Professional Baseball League has grown to have its own economic implications, and businesses are being generated. We'll need to keep our eyes and ears open to tune into the needs of the people and explore the business opportunities.
A Buy Korea spree is underway. Foreign investors are flooding into the market. They can't seem to get enough of Korean stock. Why is this fever underway, and is it sustainable? These are some of the questions we'll be asking to our guest today. Here's Dr. Kim In-cheol, and he is with the Korea Economic Association. Dr. Kim, thanks for being here. Welcome to Bizline.
Glad to be here with you.
Okay. Just tell us about this Buy Korea spree. What are the facts and figures? How long has this been going on for?
Okay, according to the Korea Exchange, the global investors have net purchased Korean stocks for the 37th consecutive trading session between, say, August 23 and October 17. Well, I need to take a little note of here.
Sure.
According to the Korea Exchange, the foreign investors net purchased the Korean stocks for the 37th consecutive trading sessions between August 23 and October 21st.
Okay.
The collective volume during this time period to amount 12 trillion Korean won.
12 trillion, which is give or take about $12 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And this is the highest figure in 15 years. The previous, net buying was what? Between January 1st, 1998 and March the 3rd. So that was the period for, yes.
So now, of course, that Buy Korea spree took place just in the midst of the Asian financial crisis. The Korean economy was in absolute tatters. The IMF had just arrived in town. Very, very different situation to today, right?
Yes. At that time, Korean economy was really in mess because Korea was the hardest hit by the exchange currency crisis.
Right.
And on December 4th, as I recall, the IMF came up and bailed out the Korea, and instead they controlled the Korean economy. They managed the Korean economy, and they asked us to go through structural reforms and all these liberalization schemes, and they raised in particular the investment ceiling for foreigners from 50% to 55%. So that should be done by the end of February. So that's why a lot of foreigners came in to buy Korean stocks at that time. But now the situation today is a lot different, of course, in the sense that Korean economy has become much strengthened, and especially the Korea is running trade surplus. Every month, in the past 20 months, Korea has achieved trade surplus. Every month, last month, it achieved $4 billion about. So all year round, it's going to be, or expected to be, about $40 billion in trade surplus. So this is really, an indication of a strong Korean economy. Yes.
Particularly given that so much of the Korean economy, so much of the Korean market is led by big exporters. Presumably, investors are looking at those exporters as being pretty hot ticket items right now. But let me ask you this: there's always a fear in Korea, particularly in Korean newspapers, that foreign money, a sudden inflow of foreign money, could be hot money. It comes in, buoys the market, then suddenly flows out. Is that fear justified? Are foreigners fast money players?
Well, people have bad memories of the past. That's what happened in the past. But the situation, as I say, is different because this time Korean economy is growing. Last year was a little low, 2%, but now this year a bit above 3%, and next year is going to be even higher than. So fundamentally, the Korean economy is stronger. Not only that, say there are two large groups of countries for investment. In the eyes of foreign investors, is there another country that is Korea? I mean, Korea is in between,
between
newly
developed
emerging yes,
and developing.
Yes.
Right.
So,
I think so.
even if the U.S. economy is recovering, they will not, immediately go into the U.S., for investment. They would rather stay and wait until they become really convinced that, it's time for them to make investment in the U.S. or in other countries. Even, in that case, they will not take, full amount. They just take, small amount or, part of it, out of Korea, and just for the idea of diversification.
Yeah, well, you've got to diversify, and it's a very interesting point you raised that Korea falls between developed and developing countries. I think the British FTSE has Korea down as a developed market, whereas
so that
the Morgan
implies that
Stanley Capital Index has you as a developing country.
So that that's why I would
Yeah.
say that they will not pull their money out immediately or within a short time period. They would rather have a longer term time perspective. Unlike the ones before.
Right. All that having been said, you talked just now about diversifying your portfolio if you're an investor. But when it comes to actually investing in Korea, most of the big players tend to focus on a very narrow range of stocks, the blue chips, the Samsungs, the Hyundais.
Right.
Why are foreign players not taking a broader look at the Korean market?
Yes, well, I would do the same thing, if I were them, because these companies, including Samsung, SK and Hyundai and LGs, are international companies, so their system is pretty much globalized. The accounting system and then all these things are transparent, and have been a better access to information, and also the people there, just can communicate with the language.
There's the English factor, right?
So they feel much comfortable with these stocks, even though they have better outlook of the entire Korean economy. They tend to focus on these
a limited number of plays,
limited number of stocks. Yes.
Got you. So you talked just now about you believe that Korea has good macro figures and people will keep their money in. But what are the risk factors? What might lead investors to pull out of Korea and go elsewhere? What could bring Buy Korea to an end?
Well, they always look for alternatives, and see where else can they make better or the higher profits. So anytime they find, say, other countries like India or Indonesia, more profitable, then they would move to those countries. But that doesn't mean that they would completely leave Korean blue chips.
Yeah.
So that's okay, but. Still, we need to upgrade, our, system and transparency and then, accounting system, and in addition, we'd like to, give out, better, image of Korean managers, because corporate managers, especially the large companies,
the chairman,
because they rather give out the better image. To the foreign investors.
When I speak to institutional investors here, there is still a discount on Korean stocks. Some people say this may be due to the North Korea risk, but a lot of the players will actually say, no, we've got problems with managerial transparency. Korea's been making steps to improve transparency and accountability and disclosure for the last 15 years. What more needs to be done? What can the market, what can the regulators do to start chipping away at this discount?
Well, North Korea factor, as you say, is perhaps small, minimal influential. But when it comes to really, the threat or crisis, nuclear weapon testing or attacking, some islands of Korea, that's going to be real problem. Other than that, the North Korea factor has been somehow lessened and been already reflected in the market. Now, what else can we consider, in order to maintain the stable market? As has been pointed out, we need to improve, the financial, system and the prudential, supervision. Needs to be done by the regulatory authorities. And there's so many companies, financial companies, in banks in Korea. Sometimes, it's inevitable, for scandals to occur, but we need to reduce the number of financial scandals, the large ones especially, so that we want to have them have a good impression on the Korean companies.
You know, Dr. Kim, you were saying that we've got about 30% foreign investment now in the Korean market. Market cap is about 30% held by foreigners. Seems like quite a high number. Should there be more domestic investment in the stock market to sort of counterbalance this heavy foreign weight?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would like to see more domestic, investors, players, to invest in Korean stocks. Now, at the present time, the foreigners, hold about 450 trillion wons stocks. So that accounts for, a little bit over 30% of total market capitalization. Now, even say if they hold more than 10%, that's going to be somewhat influential. But more than 30%, that's very influential, and that's going to. I mean, they're the one who
they lead the market.
Lead the market, and then they can do whatever they want to, which is not very good thing to see. So I would like have more Korean players to come in and buy more of Korean stocks.
But are Korean players long-term investors?
Yes, they are. I mean, some of them are long-term players, but individual investors,
the retail traders,
there are a lot
day
of
traders.
Yes, so their time perspective is rather short-term based. So whenever they see that when they compare the price they bought at before, and the current price is higher than, then just sell them off. So rather
so
they
that's
change.
Stability
Exactly. So in order to have a stabler, more stable economy, the market. Perhaps they may change their that kind of attitude a little bit, so that they rather stay a bit longer than otherwise.
I think traditionally Koreans, I believe, have invested more heavily in real estate as their long-term play, and the market as the short-term day trade or short-term trade. Is there any signs that may change and the stock market will be seen as a more stable investment destination?
Well, previously in the past, the big hands, the investors, they rather looked at, the real estate market and stock market together. So they just move around, stock market and the real estate market. As you see, these days the real estate market is down, although it is recovering slowly. So as you say, as the real estate market is, is getting on the normal track, of course, that's very good place for investment because it is rather long-term based, investment. So I would, just diversify my wealth, partly, just investing in the real estate and partly in the stock market, and partly, holding cash. So that's more, a better strategy.
Speaking of your strategy, let me ask you this: end of the year, where do you think the Kospi will be? Will it be north of 2,200 points?
I think so, because I would bet that it's going to exceed 2,300 by the end of this year.
That's bullish. Okay. Are you a player right now? Are you buying in?
No, because I have no money.
Me too. Dr. Kim, thank you very much for being on
Thank you
Bizline.
for
It's
being
been a
with me
pleasure.
too. Yes.
Okay. Bendable smartphones, wearable computers, foldable electronic paper. All these gizmos are actually approaching commercialization, thanks, of course, to bendable displays. Given how important a high-tech commodity bendable displays are becoming, it's worth learning a little bit about the material which enables them. So, pick up your pen and paper, pay careful attention as Bizline teaches you all you need to know about graphene.
Graphene is a next-generation material recently emerging as a hot issue in the ICT industry. It is getting attention around the world as a key to development of curved smartphones, flexible displays, and rollable electronic paper. Let's take a look at graphene, the dream material that can bring forth the future of ICT. And Kai's Taejeon is working on developing graphene technologies. Why is graphene taking the center stage as a next-generation material? Graphene is a material which comprises of graphite or pencil lead that can be easily seen.
탄소로만 구성되어 있는 원자층들이 3차원적으로 층층이 쌓여 있는 것이 흑연입니다. 우리가 영어로는 그라파이트죠. 근데 이 그라파이트에서 한 층을 벗겨내게 되면 그것이 원자 한 층만으로 구성된 탄소 물질, 그것이 바로 그래핀입니다. 그래서 원래 그래핀은 우주에서 뚝 떨어진 물질이 아니고요. 지구상에 있는 그라파이트를 한 층만 벗겨내면 그것이 바로 그래핀인 거죠.
Graphene is getting attention from various industries as it is 200 times stronger than steel, transfers electrons 100 times faster than silicon, and is flexible. Since graphene was first discovered in 2004, South Korea's graphene-related patents are rising explosively. Graphene is receiving the most attention for its potential to become a material for flexible electronic devices. The ICT industry is competitively developing next-generation electronic devices such as curved smartphones, wearable computers, or electronic paper. To enable commercialization of the next-generation electronic devices, flexible displays and flexible electrodes must be installed. Flexible OLED electrodes are made using graphene's flexible characteristics. It can be bent more than any other materials, and after being bent, its properties return. Because of this advantage, experts regard graphene as the only electrode material that can be applied in flexible display.
그래핀 전극을 활용을 해서 OLED를 만들었는데요. 그 그래핀 전극이 아래 투명하게 깔려져 있고 그 위에 OLED를 만들기 위해서 유기물이 적층이 되어 있는 다음 그 위에 이제 메탈 전극을 깔아가지고 이제 그래핀은 투명하면서도 전류를 흐를 수가 있기 때문에 그래핀 전극과 알루미늄 사이에 전압을 줘서 지금 가운데 있는 오가닉 물질들이 빛이 나올 수 있는 형태입니다.
투명하면서도 휘어질 수 있는 전극 소재는 거의 그래핀이 유일하다고 볼 수가 있습니다. 그런 면에서는 앞으로 플렉서블 디스플레이, 유연한 디스플레이가 시장에 나오게 되면 그래핀이 그런 유연 디스플레이에 들어가는 투명 전극으로서 핵심적인 어떤 소재로서 응용 가능성이 굉장히 크다고 볼 수 있습니다. 사실 디스플레이라는 게 전극만 있는 것이 아니고 그 빛을 내는 물질도 들어가고 그 다른 여러 가지 컴포넌트들이 모여서 디스플레이가 되는 것이기 때문에 그런 모든 컴포넌트들이 다 유연해져야지만 완벽한 이제 유연 디스플레이가 구현될 수 있겠죠.
Flexible non-volatile memory devices applicable in flexible electronic devices can be fabricated using graphene. But the non-volatile memory chip can be fabricated at low cost using graphene from cheap graphite, and it can be easily bent as it is fabricated on plastic substrate. The memory's characteristics were intact even after it was bent more than 1,000 times during the experiment. Like this, graphene has a strong mechanical endurance.
갈수록 소자들이 작아지면서 발열 문제가 이제 커지는 게 심각한 문제인데요. 이런 발열 문제에 있어서도 그래핀의 경우는 발열이 거의 없기 때문에 더 작은 이제 반도체 소자를 가는 데 있어서 그래핀을 우수할 수 있다라는 것은 어떻게 보면은 모든 사람들이 많이 알고 있었던 것이고요.
Another reason graphene is getting the spotlight is because of its potential to implement high-efficiency semiconductor. For the first time in the world, this graphene center has recently succeeded in implementation of a semiconductor that is 100 times faster than existing products. A local research team has opted for a saw-like electrode as a solution. By inserting this saw-like electrode to graphene, it can still have the electron transfer characteristics without changing its atomic structure.
그래핀으로 이제 컴퓨터나 스마트폰이나 이런 여러 가지 저희 전자기기의 결국에는 머리라고 해당할 수 있는 그런 프로세서 유닛들을 저희가 만약 대체할 수 있다면은 이제 성능이 훨씬 더 좋아지기 때문에요. 지금보다 더 좋아질 수 있고요. 발열이 심하게 되면은 저희가 거기에 그 쿨러나 이 냉각을 하기 위한 장치도 엄청나게 많이 이제 탑재를 해야만 되는데요. 그런 것들이 없게 되면 이제 더 작은 더 작고 그 가볍고 대신에 더 빠른 스마트폰이라든지 이제 이런 것들에 대해서 한층 더 가까이 갈 수 있는 가능성이 있다고 말씀드릴 수 있습니다.
물성이 균일하면서도 아주 큰 사이즈의 그래핀을 만들어내는 것들, 그리고 그것들을 제품화하기 위한 여러 가지 공정이 필요한데요. 그런 공정도 그래핀이 하나의 원자층이기 때문에 공정을 하다 보면 찢어지기도 하고 여러 가지 문제가 있을 수 있습니다. 그런 것들을 이제 해결해야지만 어떤 실제로 상용한 제품에 쓰일 수 있는 가능성이 있다고 볼 수 있습니다.
If these problems are solved and graphene technologies are commercialized, we will be able to meet imaginary smart devices in reality.
여러 가지 랩탑이라든지 패드들 그리고 휴대폰들이 다 하나의 기기로 통합돼 가지고 우리가 원할 때는 랩탑으로도 쓸 수가 있고 원할 때는 또 패드로 쓸 수도 있고 원할 때는 또 휴대폰으로 쓸 수 있는 스마트폰으로 쓸 수 있는 그런 형태가 좀 변할 수 있는 그런 모바일 기기들 이런 것들을 구현하는 데 있어서 그래핀이 굉장히 핵심적인 역할을 할 것이고요.
Whether or not we can commercialize flexible displays using graphene will be determined in the next 5 years. The dream material graphene is likely to bring forward more quickly the future of ICT technologies.
Bang! Actually, this is not a gun, but we'll come to that in a moment. Now, traditionally, if you wanted to take someone's temperature, you'd get a thermometer, you'd put it in the mouth, the ear, under the armpit, or in somewhere we can't really mention on a family show like Bizline. That is no longer the case. There are now thermometers, like this one, which can take your temperature without any body contact at all. Do they work? Yep, my temperature is quite normal. Let's meet this week's hidden champion.
New and expecting parents gathered at a baby fair to look for the best baby products and to learn about the recent trend in baby-related items. There was one booth where these picky parents were spotted. It was the corner that introduced the latest in children's thermometers. The non-contact thermometer has gained the attention of Korean mothers, becoming the representing thermometer among similar products out on the market.
체온계 같은 경우에 다른 거 같은 경우는 귀에다 넣어가지고 소리가 나거든요. 근데 저거는 소리 끈과 킴이 되어 있어가지고 우선 아이한테 해가 안 될 것 같고요. 그리고 비접촉이다 보니까 아무래도 접촉을 하게 되면 세균 같은 문제도 걱정되는데 저거는 그럴 위험성도 없는 것 같고요.
일단 아기들한테 접촉이 없기 때문에 오염의 위험도 없고요. 위생적이고 일단 거부감이 전혀 없습니다. 그렇기 때문에 어머니들이 비접촉 체온계를 많이 지금 선호하고 있고요.
The non-contact thermometer was first introduced back in 2003, when the SARS epidemic took many people's lives. The non-contact thermometer was introduced into the Korean market 2 years ago. The thermometer was first made by a Korean company, Hubidic, when non-contact type thermometers were not widely available in Korea.
저희가 비접촉식 체온계를 개발하게 된 계기는 지난 신종플루 기간에 개인뿐만이 아니라 공공기관이나 학교 등 그런 기관에서도 체온계에 대한 수요가 있다는 걸 알게 됐고요. 당시에 그분들이 찾는 체온계는 가장 짧은 시간에 그리고 가장 많은 사람들을 바이러스 전염 없이 측정할 수 있는 장비를 많이 찾고 있었습니다. 그래서 그런 시장의 수요에 대응하고자 저희가 비접촉식 체온계를 개발 런칭하게 되었습니다.
How does the non-contact thermometer work without making contact with the skin? It is done by sensing the infrared rays that are emitted from the body.
열 에너지가 있는 곳에서는 적외선이 방출되게 됩니다. 인체에서 방출되는 적외선을 사용하여서 체온을 측정할 수 있습니다.
The sensor inside the thermometer is able to sense the strength of infrared rays that come out from a person's body, which then changes the temperature of the heat sensor. That temperature is transformed into an electronic signal and into a number that the user can identify.
비접촉 체온계에서 가장 핵심적인 기술은 측정 방식이 비접촉이기 때문에 거리에 대한 온도 보정 기술과 특정 부위의 열 에너지 변환 기술이 제품의 핵심입니다.
The key factor for a good thermometer is in its accuracy. The non-contact thermometer is not placed inside the ears, but recommended to be used by aiming at the temple artery where blood flow is the most active in order to get an accurate measurement of the body temperature.
체온은 재는 부위에 따라서 결과가 다르게 나올 수 있습니다. 겨드랑이 체온이나 귀 속 고막 체온계보다는 항문 체온을 통해서 중심 체온을 재는 게 가장 정확한 방법입니다. 하지만 편리성을 생각했을 때 비접촉 체온계를 사용하는 게 좋을 것으로 생각이 되는데요. 주로 이제 비접촉 체온계를 재는 부위는 관자놀이 부위입니다. 이 부위는 축두동맥이 흐르게 되는데 축두동맥은 혈액량이 많기 때문에 정확하게 체온을 측정할 수 있을 것 같습니다.
The time needed to get the temperature for the non-contact thermometer is 1 second, which is ideal for small children who have a hard time keeping still. The non-contact method also reduces the risk of secondary contamination.
저희 비접촉 체온계는 체온 측정 구간에서 동일한 0.2도의 측정 오차를 갖고 있어 일반 체온계와 정확도는 같습니다. 허나 귀 체온계의 경우 2도 모양이나 귀지, 측정 방법에 따라 측정 오류가 발생할 수 있으나 비접촉식 체온계의 경우 귀 체온계의 이러한 단점을 보완하여 좀 더 정확한 측정이 가능합니다.
Is a mother of a 15-month-old. She uses the Hubidic thermometer to check on the health of her baby through small changes in body temperature. The non-contact thermometer can be used for checking the temperature of bathing water and even food temperature. It is an essential item that can be utilized for everyday use.
접촉을 하는 게 아니기 때문에 아이들한테 거부감이 없고 고개를 돌리지 않기 때문에 이제 바로 잴 수 있다는 점과 다른 체온계 같은 경우는 그냥 사람이 체온만 재기 때문에 그냥 다른 뭐 실내 온도라든지 무슨 음료수, 뭐 젖병 등등을 할 수가 없는데 비접촉 체온계 같은 경우는 여러 가지 이제 온도를 잴 수가 있기 때문에 사용이 참 편리한 것 같아요. 실생활에서 뭐 음식하거나 이럴 때도 사용할 수가 있고요.
Although a late starter in the business, Hubidic was able to capture the hearts of Korean moms with its product accuracy and practical usage. Within 2 years of launching the non-contact thermometer, the company is expected to reach $5 million in export sales, creating a wave of change in the world of non-contact thermometer market.
저희의 가장 큰 장점은 가장 빠른 시간에 그리고 가장 편하게 그리고 가장 정확한 값을 소비자들에 전달해 준다는 거고요. 체온계 외에도 혈당계, 그리고 체지방계, 그리고 체중계, 그리고 혈압계 등 이런 제품을 통해서 뉴 헬스케어 시장에 진입을 하려고 지금 현재 시도를 하고 있습니다.
Hubidic plans to challenge itself by coming up with new and better products. This by targeting the healthcare market through the company's thermometers and various medical appliances, which will open new doors for people to get treated without having to go to the hospital. Hubidic strives to improve the health of people's lives around the world. The company stands as an emerging force in the next generation healthcare industry.
In his New Year's speech, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un promised his people a whole range of leisure and cultural opportunities. True to this promise, Pyongyang has been constructing and promoting a range of related facilities. Why is North Korea suddenly promoting leisure and recreation? And does this truly mean that the lives of North Korean people are improving? Let's take a look.
Missile, nuclear, recession and famine. Those are words that people often associate with North Korea, which are frightening and gloomy. But now a word with a very different image could be added to describe one of the world's most repressive totalitarian states, which is amusement. An over-the-top opening ceremony of Munsu Water Park took place in the east of Pyongyang about 2 weeks ago. The 100,000 square meter water park is filled with colorful water slides, indoor and outdoor swimming pools, and a number of amenities that make it as good as any water theme park generally found in capitalist nations. But the water park is just one of many fun places that North Korea has been avidly building and renovating across the country since Kim Jong-un took claim to his throne. This year, the regime has built or plans to build Haedanghwa Mall 3D and 4D movie theaters, arcade game zones, an ice skating rink, horse riding facilities, Mashikpa ski resort, and others. And North Korean media has been rushing to praise Kim for loving his people by providing such wonderful recreational places. In his New Year's speech, the youngest Kim made a pledge to build a more civilized nation under socialism by improving cultural life for North Koreans. That inevitably brought on a boom in the construction of recreational facilities in the secretive socialist state. But North Korean experts believe all these lavish recreational projects have been built across the nation to consolidate the younger Kim's leadership after all.
김정은 제1위원장의 지금 집권 2년차인 지금 시점에서 좀 더 주민들과 밀접하게 결합하는 지도자 이미지를 주면서 김정은 체제 안정감을 내외에 과시하는 그런 행보를 볼 수도 있습니다.
Under the youngest Kim's rule, such recreational places have been built not only in Pyongyang but in other local cities. To increase the propaganda effect, North Korea's state-run media has been frequently showing people having fun in those amusement facilities, including the number of people visiting the places. Some people still doubt whether the general public, aside from those from the privileged class, can have easy access to such fancy places these days.
옛날은 그래도 굶어 죽을 정도는 아니었어요, 북한 주민들이. 그렇기 때문에 조금 여유가 있으면 가서 애들이 놀았지만 지금은 먹고 살기 힘든데 언제 그 널럭해서 타고 있겠어요. 이용할 사람들이 몇이나 되는지 모르겠습니다. 그리고 또 가격이 이전에는 국정 가격으로 되게 싸게 놀았는데 지금은 아마 옛날 가격 가지고 놀기 힘들 것 같아요. 그래서
2,500만 정도의 인구에서 뭐 0.001% 정도는 혜택을 받겠죠. 그러나 그게 텔레비전을 통해서 혹은 신문을 통해서 잡지를 통해서 이렇게 보도가 되면 젊은 장군이 우리를 위해서 뭔가 애를 쓰고 있나 하는 생각을 하게는 되죠. 그러니까 이미지 메이킹엔 성공할 수 있습니다. 주민들한테.
North Korean state-run media has often reported Kim Jong-un making inspection visits not only to military bases but to construction sites of these recreational facilities.
아버지보다는 할아버지가 인기 있었다는 건 확실하게 아는 것 같아요. 이 사람이. 자기 할아버지가 주민들 속에 들어가서 이렇게 뭐 손 잡고 뭐 물어보고 뭐 이랬던 그 모습을 지금 그대로 보이려고 노력을 하는 것 같거든요. 실제로 북한 주민들 사이에서 김일성에 대한 향수가 있어요.
It seems Kim is trying to protect an image as a hearty leader who can provide such extravagances to its people, aiming to appeal to the young generation too.
특히 북한의 젊은 청년들이랄지 20, 30대 이런 젊은 사람들은 김정은 제1위원장에 대한 기대치가 좀씩 높아지는 그런 그 계기를 만들어주는 것도 이러한 김정은 제1위원장의 어떤 스킨십 정치다 이렇게 볼 수 있습니다. 물론 이제 김정은 제1위원장에 대한 그 장년층이랄지 이런 쪽에서는 좀 우려가 있을 수가 있는데 어쨌든 자신의 어떤 정치적인 그 행보를 이런 그 주민들과의 밀접한 모습을 보여주면서 보다 김정은 제1위원장이 안정적으로 북한을 이끌고 있다 이런 이미지를 주는 뭐 이런 것으로 해석할 수도 있습니다.
But such big lavish projects seem to be a waste in the state where the majority of the people still live without food and other basic needs.
마식령 스키장 같은 건 정말로 웃긴 게 북한에 스키를 탈 사람들이 없어요. 자기 취미거든요, 그거는. 이민들한테 무슨 말 타기를 장려하고 스키를 장려한다. 솔직히 국민들이 웃어요, 북한 주민들이. 저런 철딱선이 없는 애. 그렇게 주민들은 생각하고 있고요. 그래서 그게 크게 그냥 외부적으로 보여지는 거죠. 혹시나 외부에서 볼 때 북한의 주민들한테 이렇게 복지를 하려고 노력하는구나 이런 이미지를 보여준다거나.
The true reason behind the project is that Kim wants to show off to the outside world that the secretive country is not that different from the rest of the world.
우리는 정상 국가다라는 이미지를 주고 싶거든요. 지금 현재 주어진 여건에서 김정은이 지도자로서 지금 하는 일이 우리가 보기에는 참 쓸데없어 보이지만 그 사람은 적은 예산을 가지고 배분을 할 때 이미지 메이킹 굉장히 중요하고 나름의 효과를 지니고 있습니다. 문제는 아까 말씀드렸다시피 이게 후속적으로 실제 인민들의 생활이 수준이 높아지는 일이 곧 따라가면 좋은데 그리고 그 길이 없는 건 아니에요. 그런데 그걸 할 것 같지 않아요.
In fact, while the number of leisure facilities has increased significantly in North Korea since last year, investment on construction of social infrastructure like roads, ports, and power plants shrank. North Korea spent nearly $300 million on building some sports and recreational facilities for the privileged class since Kim Jong-un took over the leadership. That is enough money to buy 800,000 tons of food, which could feed the entire population of North Korea for 2 to 3 months. Some North Korean experts say Kim might have invested on such facilities to entice foreign tourists to visit one of the world's most repressive countries in hopes of recovering its moribund economy.
이런 오락시설이랄지 유의장을 보여주는 것은 외부에서 봤을 때 북한이 그 관광할 수 있는 나라구나라고 하는 관광을 할 수 있는 나라 이런 그 이미지를 주면서 외국인 관광객 유치하는 데도 도움이 될 수 있다. 다만 이제 북한이 전체적인 어떤 개방이랄지 이것을 하지 않은 상황에서 제한적으로 이런 그 유의시설이랄지 오락시설을 보여주는 정도 가지고 외국인들의 어떤 대량 그 관광객이 들어오는 이 부분은 현실적으로 어렵지 않느냐.
The North Korean regime should know building these extravagant theme parks is not what the people of North Korea need to improve their quality of life. What Kim Jong-un needs to do is ensure that his people do not have to worry about when they can have their next meal.
And that's all we have time for on Bizline this week. But do join us next week. We'll be looking at the role of mid-sized companies in the South Korean economy and asking if they can ever compete with the big boys. We'll also be finding out whether the South Korean government has the right policies in place to enable this desirable trend to take place. So do stay with us. But for now, that's all we have. I'm Andrew Salmon. This was Bizline. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.